Welcome to Hockey Wiz Talks podcast. Today I'll be talking about the 2023 NHL free agent signings. In this podcast, I'll be talking about all of the major free agent signings so far up till now and who is left to sign in free agency. Here are the key UFA signings by team in alphabetical order. The Anaheim Ducks signed Alex Killorn to a 4-year deal worth $6.25 million per season, Radko Gudas to a 3-year deal worth $4 million per season, and Robert Hagg to a 2-year deal. Arizona Coyotes signed Jason Zucker to a 1-year deal worth $5.3 million, Alex Kerfoot to a 2-year deal worth $5.3 million per season, Nick Bukestad to a 2-year deal at $2.1 million per season. Alex Galchenyuk and Troy Stecher signed 1-year deals. Boston Bruins signed Morgan Geekie to a 2-year deal at $2 million per season. Kevin Shattenkirk, Milan Lucic, and James Van Riemsdyk all signed matching 1-year deals at $1 million per season. Buffalo Sabres signed Connor Clifton to a 3-year deal worth $3.33 million per season. They re-signed Tyson Jost to a 1-year deal at $2 million. They brought in Eric Johnson on a 1-year deal at $3.25 million and signed Dustin Tokarski to a 1-year deal. The only major signing the Calgary Flames had was signing Jordan Oesterle to a 1-year deal. The rest of the signings the Flames had was signing minor league deals. The Carolina Hurricanes made major waves this offseason, signing Dmitry Orlov to a 2-year deal at $7.75 million per season. Then they signed Michael Bunting to a 3-year deal worth $4.5 million per season, and they also retained both their goalies from last year, Anderson at a 2-year deal worth $3.4 million per season, and Antti Ranta to a 1-year deal worth $1.5 million. The only free agent signings the Chicago Blackhawks made was signing Ryan Donato to a 1-year deal. The Colorado Avalanche were very active this free agency period. First, they re-signed Bowen Byram to a 2-year deal at $3.85 million per season. Then they brought in Jonathan Drouin on a 1-year deal at $8.25 million per season. They also brought in Miles Wood on a 6-year deal at $2.5 million per season. Jack Johnson and Andrew Cogliano were brought back for 1 more year, and UC Anonin was also brought back for 1 more year. The Columbus Blue Jackets did not have any free agent signings this year. The Dallas Stars were another Central Division team that was very active in the free agency period. The major free agent signings they made was signing Matt Duchene to a 1-year deal worth $3 million, as well as Sam Steele to a 1-year deal worth $850K. They also brought back Evgeny Dadonov for 2 more years at $2.25 million per season. To get more veteran depth scoring, they went out and signed Craig Smith to a 1-year deal at $1 million. They retained Joel Hanley to a 2-year deal. They retained defenseman Joel Hanley to a 2-year deal. And Gavin Bayreuther was signed to a 1-year deal. The Detroit Red Wings were a very busy team this free agency period. The major free agent signing was JT Compher to a 5-year deal worth $5.1 million AAV. They retained Klim Kostin on a 2-year pact at $2.1 million per season. They brought in defenseman Shane Gostisbehere on a 1-year deal at $4.125 million. And defenseman Justin Hall on a 3-year deal at $3.4 million per season. To shore up the goaltending, they brought in 2 goalies, James Reimer on a 1-year pact at $1.5 million, and goalie Alex Lyon on a 2-year pact at $900K per season. The Edmonton Oilers signed Connor Brown to a 1-year deal at $775K, which can reach up to $4 million with incentives. They brought back Drake Caggiula on a 2-year pact, and also brought in Lane Peterson. The Florida Panthers signed Evan Rodriguez to a 4-year deal at $3 million per season. Defenseman Oliver Ekman-Larsson to a 1-year deal at $2.25 million. Nico Mikkola to a 3-year pact at $2.5 million per season, as well as defenseman Mike Riley and Dmitry Kulikov to matching 1-year deals at $1 million. They also brought in Steven Lorentz and Kevin Stenlund for depth scoring. Restricted free agent Grigory Denisenko was signed to a 2-year deal. The Los Angeles Kings were relatively quiet other than trading for and then signing Pierre-Luc Dubois. They signed veteran goalie Cam Talbot to a 1-year deal at $1 million, as well as David Rittich. Those 2 goalies alongside Phoenix Copley should make an interesting trio in net. Jared Anderson Dolan was brought back for another year. Trevor Lewis, longtime LA King, was brought back for 1 year, and Andreas Englund was brought in for a 2-year pact. The Minnesota Wild were not very active in free agency, mainly because of their lack of cap space due to the dead cap occupied by the Zach Parise and Ryan Suter buyouts. The Montreal Canadiens did very little other than re-signing their RFAs, but they also did bring in Elias Anderson for 1 year, which could be a very sneaky signing. The Nashville Predators were very busy after buying out Matt Duchene prior to free agency. First, they signed Ryan O'Reilly to a 4-year deal at $4.5 million per season. Then they signed Gustav Nyquist to a 2-year deal at $2.5 million per season. They retained Cody Glass to a 2-year deal worth $2.5 million per season. Luke Shen was brought in for 3 years at $2.75 million per season, and brought back Alexander Carrier for 1 more year at $2.5 million. And now a word from our sponsor. Check out my scouting blog at hockeywiz777scouting.com. Listen to my scouting blog podcast on podcasters.spotify.com/pod/show/hockeywiz777scouting. The New Jersey Devils were not very active in the free agency period after re-signing both Timo Meier and Jesper Bratt, although they did trade for Colin Miller from the Dallas Stars, giving up a 5th round pick. They did bring back 2 players that they originally did not qualify in Nathan Bastian and Michael McLeod, and they signed Eric Shalgren to a 1-year deal. The major news out of Long Island was that Ilya Sorokin was extended for 8 more years at $8.25 million per season. They also retained veteran defenseman Scott Mayfield for 7 more years at $3.5 million per season, Pierre Engvall for 7 more years at $3 million per season, and Semyon Varlamov to a 4-year deal at $2.75 million per season. The New York Rangers went to work in the free agency period to fill out their depth. First, they signed veteran winger Blake Wheeler to a 1-year deal at $800K, which is a steal of a contract. They also signed veteran center Nick Bonino to a 1-year deal at $800K. Depth forwards Alex Belize and Tyler Pitlick. Belize to a 2-year deal and Pitlick to a 1-year deal. To improve their depth on defense, they signed Eric Gustafsson, Connor Mackey, and Ben Harper. And to back up Igor Shesterkin, they brought in Jonathan Quick for 1 year. The Ottawa Senators didn't make any major splashes on offense, but they did shore up their goaltending with the signing of Jonas Korpisalo to a 5-year deal worth $4 million AAV. Travis Hamonic was signed to a 2-year deal at $1.1 million per season, and Eric Brandstrom was brought back for 1 more year. The Philadelphia Flyers were not expected to be an active team in free agency, but they did sign some veteran players. They signed veteran defenseman Mark Stahl to a 1-year deal, Garnet Hathaway to a 2-year deal worth $2.375 million per season. Ryan Poehling was signed to a 1-year deal at $1.4 million. The Pittsburgh Penguins were expected to be a team that would be very active in the free agency period, but thus far they have not made any major free agency splashes. The only major signing of note they have made was signing Ryan Graves to a 6-year deal worth $4.5 million per season. They brought back goaltender Tristan Jarry for 5 more years at $5.375 million per season. To shore up their center position, they signed Lars Eller to a 2-year deal at $2.45 million per season, Noel Acciari to a 3-year deal at $2 million per season, Matt Nieto to a 2-year deal at $900K per season, and Alex Nedeljkovic to a 1-year deal at $1.5 million. The San Jose Sharks were not expected to be a major player in the free agency period, and for that reason they are spending most of their time and the main reason for that is because they're spending most of their time and efforts on trading some of their veteran pieces like Erik Karlsson and Logan Couture. However, the Sharks did make some key signings in Mackenzie Blackwood to a 2-year deal at $2.35 million per season. Fabian Zetterlund, who was brought over in the trade from New Jersey, was retained for 2 more years. Kyle Burrows was signed to 3 years at $1.1 million per season, and Giovanni Smith signed a 2-year deal. The Seattle Kraken weren't too active in the free agency period, but they did make some key signings. The most notable of which was bringing in Brian Dumoulin for 2 years at $3.15 million per season. Then they signed Kyler Yamamoto for 1 year at $1.5 million. There were no major free agent signings by the St. Louis Blues, mostly because they didn't have the cap space for it. There is going to be a lot of changes in Tampa Bay this offseason. Gone is the longest tenured Lightning, Alex Killorn. Fan favorite Pat Maroon is also gone. Corey Perry was traded to the Chicago Blackhawks. And seemingly every offseason, the Lightning get thinner on offense. However, the Lightning were able to still maintain their roster and put together a competitive roster. They signed Connor Sheary to a 3-year deal at $2 million per season, Josh Archibald and Luke Glendening to 2-year deals at $800K per season, Calvin DeHaan to a 1-year deal, and they brought in goalie Jonas Johansson as one of the possible backups for goalie Andrei Vasilevsky. One of the teams that have been very aggressive in the free agent market is the Toronto Maple Leafs. They seem to be going all in this year, with Auston Matthews on the last year of his deal. Tyler Bertuzzi was signed to a 1-year deal worth $5.5 million. Max Domi was signed to a 1-year deal at $3 million. David Kampf was brought back for 4 more years at $2.4 million per season. Ryan Reeves was signed to a 3-year deal at $1.35 million per season. John Klingberg was brought in for 1 year at $4.15 million, and Dylan Gambrell was signed for 1 year. The Vancouver Canucks were not very active this year in free agency, but they did sign Carson Soucy to a 3-year deal worth $3.25 million per season, as well as Ian Cole to a 1-year deal worth $3 million, and Teddy Bluger to a 1-year deal worth $1.9 million. The Vegas Golden Knights did not have any major free agent signings, but they did retain some of their key players. Ivan Barbashev was re-signed to a 5-year deal at $5 million per season. Aiden Hill was retained for 2 more years at $4.9 million per season. To allocate enough cap space to sign these players, Vegas had to trade away one of the original misfits in Riley Smith. The Washington Capitals had a very quiet but effective offseason. They signed Max Pacioretty to a team-friendly deal. He signed a contract worth 1 year at $2 million. This is a low-risk, high-reward signing. They also retained Martin Ferravari for 3 more years at $2.675 million per season, and traded for defenseman Joel Edmondson from the Montreal Canadiens. The Winnipeg Jets were not a major player in the free agency period, mostly probably because they are focused on trying to trade Connor Hellebuyck. They were able to re-sign Vladislav Nemesnikov for 2 more years at $2 million per season. Laurent Brossoit was brought in for 1 year at $1.75 million. Check out my hockey blog at hockeywithtalkshockey.blogspot.com. Follow me on Facebook and Instagram at hockeywith777. UFAs: Patrick Kane, Jonathan Taves, Vladimir Tarasenko, Matt Dumba, Josh Bailey, Thomas Tatar, Jonas Donskoy, Andreas Janssen, Zach Kassian, Jesse Puljujarvi, Denis Gurianov, Oscar Sundqvist, Patrice Bergeron, Nick Ritchie, Patrick Nemeth, Ethan Bear, Adam Ernie, Maxime Comtois, Vinny Hinostroza, Anders Bork, Yaroslav Halak, Travis Dermott, Paul Stastny, Derek Grant, Austin Watson, Andre Kasse, Phil Kessel, Brandon Lemieux, Tyler Mott, Caleb Jones, Thomas Grice, Darren Helm, Nolan Patrick, Colin White, Kiefer Bellows, and Austin Wagner. Key RFAs unsigned: Anaheim, Trevor Zegras, Troy Terry, Lucas Dostal, Matthias McKelly, Jack McBain, Ivan Prosvetov, Dan Yannick, Nathan Smith. Boston Bruins, Jeremy Swayman, Trent Frederick, Jacob Lauko, Ian Mitchell, Riley Walsh, and Alec Ragula. Calgary, Matthias Emilio Pedersen. Carolina, Dylan Coghlan. Chicago, Philip Kurashev. Colorado, Ross Colton. Columbus, Tim Burney. Dallas, Ty Delandria. Detroit, Joe Valeno. Edmonton, Evan Bouchard and Ryan McLeod. LA, Tobias Bornfot. Tyler Madden and Akil Thomas. Minnesota, Philip Gustafson, Kalen Addison, and Brandon Duhaime. Montreal, Alex Newhook, Mitchell Stevens, Jesse Yolonen, Nick Boudin. New Jersey, Kevin Ball. New York Islanders, Oliver Wahlstrom. New York Rangers, Alexis Lafreniere and Keandre Miller. Philadelphia Flyers, Noah Cates, Morgan Frost, and Cam York. Pittsburgh, Jonathan Gruden, Philip Hollander, Drew O'Connor, and Ty Smith. San Jose, Martin Kaut. Seattle, Vince Dunn, Will Borgen, Cale Fleury, and Cole Lind. St. Louis, Alexei Torpachenko. Tampa Bay, Tanner Janot. Toronto, Ilya Samsonov. Vancouver, Niels Höglander, Vitaly Kravtsov. Vegas Golden Knights, Brett Howden and Pavel Dorofeyev. Winnipeg Jets, Dylan Sandberg, Rasmus Kupari, Gabriel Velarde, Logan Stanley, and Morgan Barron. Predictions for the unsigned UFAs: Patrice Bergeron, Boston or retire. Matt Dumba, Dallas. Vladimir Tarasenko, Carolina. Patrick Kane, Buffalo. Thomas Tatar, Ottawa. Jonas Donskoy, Columbus. Josh Bailey, Nashville. P.S. Suter, Vancouver. Jesse Puljujarvi, San Jose. Denis Gurianov, Columbus. Maxime Comtois, St. Louis. Phil Kessel, Boston. Oscar Sundqvist, Anaheim. Adam Ernie, Detroit. Nick Ritchie, Vegas Golden Knights. Ethan Bear, Minnesota. Martin Jones, Vancouver. Thomas Grice, San Jose. Paul Stastny, Colorado. Derek Grant, Carolina. Anders Bork, Ottawa. Colin White, Nashville. Danton Heinen, Nashville. Thomas Nosek, Chicago. Travis Dermott, St. Louis. And Nick Holden, Anaheim. Listen to Hockey Whiz Talks podcast on Podbean and Spotify. Check out my travel channel at youtube.com/HockeyWhizTravels. Now that I have talked about free agency, I would like to take a look at how each of the teams look like after the free agency period in my next podcast.